Contact us, help at employmentlawyer.ca. You can do that, or 1-855-821-5900 to contact Lior. This show, we cover a lot of topics, and we like to break them down and get into different subjects that concern people. And one we thought we'd talk about this week, because a lot of new listeners, a lot of new viewers haven't caught the show before. That is shattering severance myths. The first one I'm going to throw at you, we did cover this on the week that was, but we'll go through it again just to hammer it home, and that is when you're fired, you only receive 1 or 2 weeks for every year of service.
That is the most common thing that people believe when you lose your job. Oh, if I lost my job, I know I get a week's pay for every year of service, or maybe it's 2 weeks pay for every year.
That's what my dad told me.
It's my dad told me, my Uncle Bob.
Yep.
I read something online. Maybe I even contacted the Ministry of Labor, right? So no, let's make that very clear. If there's one thing I want you to take away from today's show, is that's wrong. There's no rule. Absolutely not of a week's pay per year of service. It's, as I said before, it's based on your age, your position, and the length of your employment. So the longer you work, the older you are, and the more senior a position you have, the more is owed to you. So some people that may mean 8 months pay. Some people that may mean as much as 24 months pay. So it's not a direct connection, a week per year. None of that is true. And because people believe that, John, and they end up accepting pennies on the dollars. Employers almost count on the fact that people are not going to know what they're owed, and they get away with it. 9 out of 10 times when people lose their job, they're offered inadequate severance and accept it because they don't know any better. So if you're watching us right now, you know better, and you should tell others about it. Don't let people that you know, your friends, your loved ones, accept tens of thousands of dollars in severance less than what they're owed. It happens every day. Shouldn't happen to you.
Shattering severance myths. That's what we're doing here. You might have a eureka moment as we go through these, because some of this stuff you might not know if it's your first time catching the show. Another one is your employer says you've been fired for cause, so severance is not in your future.
Right. Yeah, very common. My God, I get calls like that all the time. So let's break this down. What does cause mean? A termination for cause, which means you don't get severance, can only happen if an employee is guilty of very significant misconduct and it's repeated, and there's no possibility of rehabilitating that relationship. That is extremely difficult to establish. So you may have done something wrong and lost your job, but that does not mean that the company can let you go for cause. You would have had to do something awful for the company to let you go for cause without compensation. And most people, when they're let go for cause, that's not cause. The company pulled the trigger before they should, and that's a wrongful dismissal. So even if you did something wrong, you are probably owed your full severance. So important then to get some legal advice.
You're talking things like theft, violence in the workplace, but stuff like, you're late for a couple days of work. Stuff like that's not good enough, but the other ones are. Right?
Absolutely. And some people do things that they're not supposed to. Maybe they're late. Maybe even they talk rude to their boss. None of that is good.
Right.
But it's not cause. Yes, if you hit somebody, if you stole, that's cause, full stop, end of story. But for most people, the type of misconduct, sometimes it's performance. The company says you're not doing a good job, your performance is not good, so I'm going to let you go for cause. It's almost impossible to let someone go for cause because of performance reasons. And if that's what's happened to you, if the company says they have cause, you better give me a call.
1-855-821-5900, that number, help at employmentlawyer.ca as well. We are shattering employment myths. Write these down if you're quick enough, or at least remember them. Another one on the list here is being on contract means you don't get any severance.
Yeah, and being on contract, it means a lot of different things to different people. Oftentimes when people talk about being on contract, they talk about being an independent contractor. When they're not really an employee, and they think, well, if I'm an independent contractor, I don't get severance. We'll talk at length about independent contractors in future shows, but I want our viewers to understand that just calling yourself an independent contractor doesn't make you one. Most people, where they in fact supposedly are independent contractors, the law still considers them to be employees. If you have a regular job, you go to work, you work for the company under their direction, you've been doing it for a while, you're likely an employee. It doesn't matter what you call yourself. It doesn't even matter how you pay your taxes. The law will consider you to be an employee, which means you have the rights of an employee, overtime, vacation pay, and it also means you have the same severance rights as an employee. So calling yourself an independent contractor doesn't matter. The technical term that I like to use, it's very complicated, hopefully everyone understands, is if it looks like an employee and acts like an employee, it's an employee.
It could also be complications when it comes to CRA as well, if you've been doing that incorrectly under the guise that you're an independent contractor. That could come back and bite you severely.
Absolutely, both company and individual. So it's important to get it right. So if you're not sure if you're an employee or an independent contractor, if you're not sure what those rights and entitlements are that you have, give me a call.
Shattering those severance myths. Another one, short service employees get very little severance. Again, this goes back to our week that was. It was, a month per year, a month.
Yeah, I've had clients that have worked for 6 months, and they thought, oh, if I'm lucky if I get a week's pay. When in fact, they were owed 4, 5, 6 months pay. So I've said this before, so I won't talk about it at length, but short service employees, not only do they get severance, they get significant severance, because just because you work somewhere for a short period of time doesn't mean it's going to take you less time to find another job. So doesn't matter, a month, 2 months, 6 months, 20 years, all individuals get severance. Again, age, position, length of employment. You're not sure? Happy to talk to you.
You know, the last one on the list is really important, and this has cost thousands of dollars to thousands of people, and that is your rights to severance expire if you don't accept their offer deadline. Friday at 5, you got to have this signed and back to us, or whatever the case, right?
The old deadline.
Yeah.
And every single severance offer is going to have a deadline. You better sign this by Friday, Tuesday, whatever the deadline is, or else you don't get it. And think about it. If you just lost your job, your employer's offering you money, and it's going away if you don't accept it, you're going to be stressed out. You're going to feel the pressure to sign it, and probably you're going to sign it because you're feeling that pressure. That's what often employers are counting on. So no, that severance deadline is meaningless. Your legal rights don't expire Friday at 5.
Right.
In fact, you have 2 years to pursue those rights. So that deadline is a pressure tactic. You have to understand what you're actually owed. Because if you sign this because of the pressure tactic and you realize the next week that you were owed another $50,000, which is extremely common, it's too late. You can't go back. So that deadline doesn't expire. That package doesn't expire. Regardless of what the company says, you're owed what you're owed. Get some advice. Make sure you understand what you're signing, what you're owed. Once you sign, it's too late.
It's 1-855-821-5900, help at employmentlawyer.ca.